Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. And so, I have an hour before this Discord event starts, and everybody's welcome to join. It's in a voice channel on Discord at 8:30, so in an hour from now. Anyways, for this episode, something I do is that some days I allow myself to, just like a painter endlessly paint, or just like a writer, just to write without editing. And then some days I put to just edit myself, When I have wondered about the ability of human beings, pretty much we're individuals in a world, and there's others. And so what a collective means is not how one individual lives in a world, but how many individuals live at the same time. That is the great game of humanity. This is really what our species is here. More than there are, let's say there are a range and spectrum of activities. Some activities are transcendental activities, let's say some people call it spiritual activities. And some are down-to-earth activities, activities where yourself is required. Divinity is a state where the self is optional, but when it comes to earth, being a human is not optional. It's our identity. Out of all the things that I noticed, as an unknown being present in the world that I'm identifying with, I am identifying I am wearing the image of the idea of the human species. Right now, whether I like it or not, I am dressed in, like I have this consideration. When I was young, I thought I knew it all. But when I got older, I realized I don't know it all, but I do know the unknown. Pretty much, I'm wondering if all the expectations I've had as an individual in this lifetime for the collective vision of humanity, for a moment I realized that they are incomplete. But once you realize you're incomplete, what the next thing you do is to realize how much incomplete you are. You see, the moment we think of it this way, there's this unknown intelligent space, okay? It dresses it, this unknown energy. And this unknown energy dresses itself up in the shape of the human existence. Now, the moment it is human, the moment we're not just an objective silent creature in a 3D world, the moment we become an idea, we enter poetically, the subtler planes, I would call it, in earlier talks. Before I called it the inner realms, I called it your subtler planes of existence. You know, today is actually St. Patrick's Day. And this is an incredibly irrelevant tangent fact, you know. But, you know, the reason they call it St. Paddy's Day, not St. Patty's Day, is because, you know, I was listening to this radio thing this morning and this lady cleared it up. And she's like, Patty is short for Patrick. Patty is short for Patricia. So it's St. Paddy's Day because it was St. Patrick. So Paddy. Okay, irrelevant fact. You know. You know. Anyways, let's continue. So anyways. And of course, I'm someone who was raised in an Eastern culture. I'm more a child of smoke than a child of alcohol, but I would say the idea is celebration and cheerfulness. Anyways, are the expectations of an individual on a collective always incomplete? That's the question. That's what everybody, like, I'm giving it my go, and whoever you are in the comment section, realize you can give your own talk on the talks I'm giving. I should probably give a talk on this. But everybody can give their own talks on the title and write it down in the comment section, you know? You know, it's as if one talk becomes many talks, you know, because one voice was heard by many ears, and those ears will become many voices, and many voices will be heard again, you know? Really what it is it's so remarkable. When I was younger, it's like I was running towards like this, oh my God, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna have a factory of robots, I'm gonna become a soccer player, you know? And it was all of this. But you know, there's this feeling that when I was younger, I wanted to be something. Now that I'm getting older, I'm like, wait a minute, it was never about being something only. It was about realizing what you're being, because you're not always going to be it. You know, they asked this person, why are you always happy? Why are you always energetic? Why are you always cheerful? And the person smiled and said, when else can I be? You think after life I'm going to be a physical embodiment, be celebrating only now in this world as an existential entity? I could celebrate along my species. You see, our species has gone through its inefficient walk, and soon, the second book I ever wrote on this planet was called The Celestial Walk. Man, you know, I think I'm saving my books if ever I reach a point. To be honest, I had a very ingenious insight, okay? I had an insight that I think I figured out a career path, and I figured out what to do with all this Mr.Within stuff. And maybe this is the right time for me to share it in case I listen to this again. So I realize human beings, this thing I was saying about becoming, right? So we're all training. Everybody you see, every person you think is smart or you think is better than you, no, they just have better concentration than you know? And what that means is that whatever they are, you know, sometimes you see, like, for example, like, you know, I'm a bit of a, you know, I have, you know, a bit of the fascination of the old world in me as a kid born in 1991. As you go to become something, you're building yourself up in a certain way. And then you begin to realize the secret of secrets of this plane of existence, that the world is too big to master alone. And this is why love is the ultimate teaching. One of the ultimate teachings, one of the, you could say open doorways, right? One of the gates of, actually, to be honest, it's as if like, there's different people, there's this ancient mystical concept that every person's heart is the authorization of their soul. And the authorization of their soul from a theological lens and monotheistic theological lens is coming from God. So what that means is, in like certain holy books, there's this idea that in some sense a person can behave in a certain way that their creator unseals their heart. It would be literally as if you're an android and you've been programmed to do something, but if you go against the program, right, the inventor who's built the android just presses a button and the software just becomes a limited access to reality. You see, what it is the kindness of greater dimensions is never destruction. This is why any being that destroys and does evil, you most likely will reincarnate. You know why? Because in the higher dimensions, if there are, and there is, in at least one human being is saying, in the higher dimensions, they don't destroy, they teleport. They relocate. That means if you let's say a higher dimensional being, let's fathom, okay, for the sake of just argument, let's fathom a bodhisattvic being. Let's say a being that has come. Let's say there's these three dimensions. Let's say A1, A2, and A3. Okay, there's these three dimensions. Okay, now imagine there's a being in each of these dimensions. So there's a being A1, a being A2, and being A3. Okay, now let's say a being from A3, from an upper world, came to this middle world where Earth is. Okay, and then this being who had come from a lower world, still having those memories of the lesser world, the inefficient lives, are animating the individual. This concept of possession is so deep, because sometimes a person can feel possessed by their world. Do you understand? Like, these yogis realized they didn't create the world and God did, and because they were not God, they realized they were not in a simulation of their own soul. Do you understand? It's kind of weird, but it's like we're in the game of a higher dimension. And we notice it, but the lesser species, the squirrels and birds, they can at least notice us noticing something. So what I'm trying to say is that this whole life we run after completeness, but then there is death, and we're like, oh my God, I'm going to be incomplete at the end of this whole complete run. And so it makes you think, what the hell? What kind of world are we living in? That we're trying to be complete our whole lives, but then we become incomplete. But then what's the value? And some people are like, yo, there's value in being complete, right? And what's the value? They say the value is you get to experience something you haven't experienced before. So really, what's bizarre is that more than money, let's say if consciousness had a spectrum of different, a hierarchy of values, okay, it's like, let's say everybody's trying to make money, everybody's trying to get rich, everybody's trying to be the top dog or top any letter of the alphabet, A higher dimensional being has no need to destroy. You know why? Because it's smart enough to appreciate what has taken a long time to build. That means there's some good people who they're like, destroy the fucking evil, destroy it. Do you know? And then there's some people who are like, wait a minute, man. There's a human being there but their action was evil, led to an evil archetype, or their action kept them in a good archetype. Do you understand? To be the type of human beings we are is a maintenance level. We don't realize the exposure of experience can change us completely suddenly. And you know, I thought what's hilarious is it's so easy to say, it's so easy to be a materialist, okay? If you look in the mirror and you have a skin and a face and you're wearing a suit and a tuxedo and you know, you have, let's say, you know, addiction, you know, like a, you know, half the dictionary tattooed on your back. You know, I'd be interested, you know, to see like, you know, physicists like in the future have like quantum physics all over, like tattooed in their bodies. Can you imagine like Neil deGrasse Tyson, just endless like equations, like just tattooed all over his body? And they're like, yo, what does that mean? And he just explains it like next level teacher, you know. But I wouldn't recommend, I mean, like Neil deGrasse Tyson could just have it all just like, you know, like a sticker tattoo, you know. You know, in the future, I think I'm just gonna get, you know, a sticker, write "Who am I" on it, and put it on my forehead. Do you know? And people are gonna be like, "Yo, what's that on your forehead?" And I'll be like, "What's that behind your forehead?" Anyways, I'm stalling here. So what I'm saying is I'm trying to paint this picture, okay, that we're individuals, we live a life, there's certain, you know, general process we're all going through as human beings, right? What I've noticed is that even though human beings, we have this view, let's say there's a human being age 10, let's say age 50, and age 100, okay? And so imagine we have a 10-year-old, a 50-year-old, and a 100-year-old. Okay, a 100-year-old is like, will probably be like, leave me alone out of this example. Yeah. What I'm trying to say is, let's say we have a 60-year-old, we have a 40-year-old, and we have a 20-year-old. When you have more energy, you know, the idea of freedom is so fascinating. You know, you just want to be that bird that flies, and you're like, why shouldn't everybody be a bird that flies? A part of me has this feel. But then you reach a certain point where you're like, wait a minute. Galileo said you cannot teach anyone anything. You can only make them realize it within themselves. What that means is I've reached this certain point in my life where if somebody says, Mr. Within, are you helping people? I'll be like, I don't know. If they say you're not helping people, I'll be like, I don't know. All I know is that the outer realms is a gigantic canvas. A gigantic unknown canvas, and we can all paint on it. That's the cool thing. You see, there was a time where I was like, what do I need, you know, to have happiness in my life? And I remember I was looking into these mystical quotes, and one of them was like, you can be happy without a reason. And I was like, WTF? My whole life I've been trying to find a reason to be happy. It's like, yo, should I please God? Yo, should I please, you know, those who physically created me? Should I praise that which non-physically created me? Should I praise myself, which my free will is creating me? And it's as if, which creator do I praise? And the idea is very incredible, because the creator of the world is the creator of all the selves in the world, right? And it's kind of like mysticism and spirituality for the future generations. Somebody's going to be like, yo man, this is just like a phone call, but it's all about who you're calling. So imagine your brain is an advanced phone and you can use it to call, okay? And you can in some sense call yourself. You know, sometimes when I do something like foolish or stupid or just something that was so like unnecessary to do, right? You know what the first thing I do is I cover my eyes and in my inner realms, I'm like, who am I? Who am I really? You know, somebody recently, you know, said there was a Discord member, and what I can say is that human beings are born in different parts of the world. And if we look at the idea of nature and nurture, nature is what you are born with. You see, nurture is what you get. So nature is what is coming from within you naturally. Nurture is what is coming from outside of you. When they see, for example, Mozart like playing the violin in front of a king, right? And imagine somebody in the palace was like, yo, this kid's going places. And somebody else was like, buddy, there's nowhere else to go. He's performing in front of the king. Oh, man. I don't know, this life is, if you treat it multidimensional, then you can't judge physicality. If you treat it just physical, then you can't judge physicality. Do you understand? It's either ideological systems are trying to convince you that you're nothing. Exactly, this is it. Like, think about it. In the secular, in the material, the materialist comes and says, you're only your body. That means that's it. The immaterialist, let's say the religious person, comes and says, no, you are your soul. Do you know? You're not your body. You are like this creation of a creator. Do you understand? What I'm trying to say is, like, the lockdown on matter is a limitation, and therefore making matter meaningless. If everything's just matter, then why the hell should that action be good and that action be bad? Do you know what I'm saying? Materialism is very dangerous. Do you know why? Because it's dehumanized. You see, it's kind of like this. We have to, like, the soul, the free will is here as a backup system to maintain humanism, not in some sense to in some sense be something that it's like preventing the divine. So many people, they're like, man, you know, it's my ego's fault. It's not my good soul's fault. Somebody in the chat section says, grasping the concept of unconditionality is profound when you really get it. The unconditional, yeah. I mean, the interesting thing is that the unconditional, see, there's ways of life, okay? Can everybody agree to this, that just like you have a physical body that can move in multiple angles, and there are people doing parkour, and Spider-Man is like jogging on like a skyscraper, you know? Imagine on psychedelic mushrooms or something. Can you imagine, like, you know, so many people kill spiders in front of Spider-Man, and at some point Spider-Man's like, yo, this is enough. You know, in the future, you know, let's say, you know, there's this mystical view that all creatures you see right now, start from insects, from animals or from whatever. At some point they're going to reach a certain level, okay, where they may be conscious, as capable, as conscious as the human being from a transmigratory Buddhist soul view, okay, solar view. So this means, imagine one day, spiders suddenly, there's like, this might sound incredibly bizarre and too sci-fi and maybe uncomfortable for some viewers, but I'll just share the imagery. So right now we're a human species, 2 legs, 2 hands, 1 head, right? But imagine in the future there comes a sort of, it's very bizarre. It would be a sort of, there are demi-human dimensions. There are obviously human dimensions where the human kingdom must begin cultivating. The human species, it is so unconscious that it is forgetting that it needs to also declare it, just like a kingdom has walls, right? It has to declare these walls in other dimensions as well, right? You see, it's like, think of it this way. Imagine, like, this might sound bizarre, but like wolves piss out their territory, or like, animals growl or whatever, or like they say 2 tigers can't live on the same mountain. It's kind of like, now I want you to imagine 2 multidimensional creatures. Imagine 2 multidimensional, in quotations, let's say tigers on a mountain. Multidimensional beings. Right? And imagine the moment one of them goes and claims a position in one dimension, the other goes and claims the position in the other. And at some point they have to learn to coexist. So multidimensionality, really what its essence is that it's the spirit that has animated, because we find ourselves individuals in a collective place. You know what's remarkable? We have to act like we know who we are when we animate. But this is why I think nobody likes stillness and silence too much. Stillness and silence for many is scary. Because there is a chance that you may realize you're more than a person. Not that you're some personality, but you're a presence. You see, one angle is, yo, I'm an alien. It's like, no. Imagine like there was a multiple, like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, or imagine Who Wants to Be Enlightened, like a game show, okay? And the options, and there came this question, what is the soul, right? You see, is your soul like an alien? Is your soul a celestial or divine or, fictionally free character? Is your soul an object? Is your soul a subject? Is your soul an image? Is your soul the movement through the images which makes it appear like a film? Or is your soul everything? Or is your soul nothing? Or is your soul the awareness to both? Just like we have 2 eyes that see the same, it's kind of like the yin-yang was a very profound wisdom in there. That we are actually 2 beings in one. But it's not 2 beings, it's 1 being in 2 dimensions. We are the child of dimensions. That's what the human being is. Do you understand? It wasn't that like something came and like breeded with us that we gained consciousness. It's an authorization of experience. Something was cultivated. Do you know what that means? That means the cavemen may have been nice. You understand? Like imagine 2 cavemen, right, seeing each other for the first time. Imagine a caveman and a cave like girl or something, Cave lady, of course. I should where are my manners, And so it's as if it reaches a point where it's as if you see something that looks like you, and then you start going near it. Then you see it's not killing you. Then you live beside it. Do you understand? Then after a while, It's as if you're experiencing it, it's as if you know each other. But then you get bored, and then the world is so much bigger than for us to shackle our souls to objective looping desires. Do you understand? Like, a part of me is incredibly, I'll be honest, incredibly as an attributeless witnessing presence of the whole moment. A part of me is incredibly bored, but not ungrateful, but just bored, right? With how everything throughout the day is a repetition. Do you understand? And it's something bizarre. It's my problem. Why? Because it goes to food, it goes to drinking water, it goes to hygiene, it goes to everything. And for me, these are things, of course, it's as if it's bizarre, but the older you get, the more you understand that discipline was ritualistic maintenance of self. Do you understand? Everybody is doing something to either maintain how they're being. It's either this, you're either doing something to create something, the Brahmanic force, you're either doing something to maintain something, the Vishnu force, and you might be destroying something, right? There's been times where I remember, like, I took notes on a piece of paper, right? And I remember I wrote something incredible on it, right? And years later, I was converting all these notes I had written on all these random sentences, like, just ideas I'd written on pieces of paper. I was converting them all into a notebook, just taking an evening, writing all of them down. And at some point, I decided to throw away the original paper that I had written some of the sentences of that I had recorded in the notebook in. Right? I decided to get rid of those papers, right? And a part of me had this feeling where, like, yo, but that was a sacred moment. And then another part of me was like, yo, the future is sacred too. And in honor of the future, I am willing to forget my past even. When I say forget my past, I don't mean in this life. I mean that when you forget your past, the only way to forget past is to shift the experience of time. So what that means is, I'm saying this through the context of Plato, where he says time is the moving image of eternity. What that means is, on one side of the coin, oh my God, what time is it? On the other side of the coin, it's like eternity much, eternal much, Can you imagine if we were like immortal beings that had an eternal experience, let's say? I mean, immortality doesn't mean the consciousness is immortal, right? Imagine you become a person. Right now, people are owning cars, they're owning vehicles. Imagine an advanced form of consciousness that goes to different planets, incarnates, gets a body, and then its original consciousness leaves and the body just immortally continues. When I look at people, a part of me is like, what are they doing? But then another part of me is like, what can the species really do, actually? I'm an individual. Let's say I have an expectation on all of us. And I call that expectation the advanced civilization. And I'm this one person who's like envisioning an advanced humanity in the future. You know what's crazy? People can just leave, like, they could just like open a new tab and put the whole thing on mute. Like, that's an option too. You don't have to break my heart. All right, let's see, where can I take this? Are the are the expectations of an individual on a collective always incomplete? Are the collective expectations of an individual incomplete? The expectation is incomplete, but not the individual. My personality may be human, but my energetic presence, my elemental presence is universal, and my energetic presence is ineffably cosmic. So what I'm saying is our identification with what we are now, our identification with who we are now, just look at where it's going to go. Look at how much, what sort of climb the species has ahead. Everybody is trying to complete themselves. People feel an incompleteness. They're either trying to get into a relationship, trying to build something. Everybody's trying to do something, right? Everybody is still trying to complete the self. And how do I know this? Because the self-help industry is $1 billion industry. And I was like, man, do you understand? It's not self-help. You know, if I decided I have to give these talks for free, you know? Because the idea of, like, think of it this way. I'm someone who wants money to build an advanced civilization, to advance humanity. Okay, now I was like, yo, should I make my videos members only, and then make money and then advance civilization? I was like, that makes no sense. It has to happen on a mental level first. Do you understand? That means these talks are not only free, you can download them, you know, and just, my only request is just stay true to them. That's it. If you share them, stay true to the source. Because if we lose our honor, we lose our humanity. And the reason we see corruptness, we see dishonor, we see cruelty in civilization, is because we have lost our honor, and we have to accept we've lost it. And so now the cool advantage is like, yo man, I've lost my honor. What do I do now? The idea is you can find it again. And how you find your honor is through the context of it. So the idea of so pretty much I'm saying we have an individual having an expectation on the whole collective in the future, realizing that expectation is incomplete, but at the same time realizing that expectation plus let's say 8 billion other expectations becomes the advanced reality. So the idea is actually, from a psychological standpoint, everybody is in their own world, and how you know you're still in your world is because you still want happiness. Anybody who wants happiness, this might sound bizarre, right what I'm saying, but I mean here in a unique context. Anybody who wants happiness, you're incomplete. Do you understand? And so Salvador Dali has this thing from an artist's perspective, the father of surrealist art. Salvador Dali says, don't fear perfection, you'll never reach it. Why does he say that? Or why does Gandhi say there's more to life than increasing its speed? When will we realize we are all like multidimensional, advanced master musicians of that's what consciousness is. Consciousness is an ability to instantaneously animate skill in the moment. That means we not only have an ability to know that we're an object, we have an ability to move the object. We may not know how we're moving the object because consciousness still is a mystery. But consciousness will forever be a mystery because consciousness was a prerequisite before we had the language to give meaning to objects subjectively. Fair? So, let me see final comments. The idea is not that we search for knowledge, Not that you shouldn't, but I'm saying, hear me out. If you search for knowledge, you realize you're climbing an infinite ladder. You'll feel higher, you'll feel more like ascended than everybody else, but it's an infinite ladder. So anybody who uses knowledge as a method, like if you start with this view that we're using knowledge, or knowledge is how we're applying order to the chaotic unknown, you know, some people use the word dehumanized. But really, what you realize is that it's a dehumanized energy that is accepting that this biological shape falls in to the subjective parallel reality of all the concepts your mind knows. You see how it works is like we were hunters. What does that mean? Sorry, guys. This is I had to handle something. Honestly, what is there to say? We're in a world where there's silence. I mean, think of it like the world is like a point and I'm drawing lines in it. Okay? And the lines are going through the point at the median. The point is in the median of each line that has gone through the point. Okay? And so these are the dualities we're in, right? So one of the dualities is, for example, the conscious, non-conscious. The other duality is individual, collective. The other duality is life, death. The other duality is shape, space, for example. You see what I'm saying? So in this episode, I'm saying in one dualistic view of life, an individual has to realize that it can never conceive of the collective. It can only be present as it. Let me tell you why. Because the collective being knows its being. The individual being that is within the collective being doesn't know its being. It would be equivalent to, imagine the red blood cells in your veins or something. Imagine in the red blood cells in a human being's veins. Right, let's say in a parallel universe, like those red blood cells attained consciousness and they started in some sense building their own languages, technologies, having their own meetings and gatherings and their own podcasters and everything. And then at some point they realize whatever they discuss, once you realize you are experiencing a limited version of reality, just sensory wise. When I say limited version, I mean in the sense like Neil deGrasse Tyson said, the brain is not an accurate decoder. I have expectations on this reality. A part of me wants to go and build the advanced civilization. Something I tried to say earlier in today's talk, I don't know if I managed to say it, but I'll say it now. I pretty much had this vision that so many people dedicate their lives to one path. And when they go in that one path has a potential of destroying them. Because they've dedicated to that one path, it's kind of like, imagine life has multiple dimensions and you've cultivated ability in only one of these dimensions. Anyways, sorry about that, guys. There's too many pauses in this. To be honest, this is the final summary, okay? So it's really this question: Are the expectations of an individual on a collective always incomplete? Yes, because the expectation is a subjectivity that arises from the individual's inner realms. That means it's not just there's a world here, sure, but the way we see the world, the way it has meaning for us, that's personal. So consciousness is like a personal existence, you know, and in some sense, existence is like a public consciousness, you know. And so there's many ways to look at a world that is changing all the time, you know. The world is way more fascinating than the suffering it may be perceptually causing, you know. Rise, mankind, rise. Thank you for listening.